What do you mean she doesn't get a break? She's been on her feet for 6 hours. That sentence stopped Trevor Sandlin cold. He wasn't supposed to hear it. Not yet. It was a Thursday morning when Trevor pulled up to the smallest of his 8 ice cream shops, Store 3, tucked between a laundromat and a hardware store on a busy strip in eastern Oregon. The shop served cones and sundaes to families and college kids all summer, but lately, online reviews were slipping. The last one nagged at him. Great ice cream, but the staff looked exhausted and the manager yelled at someone in front of customers. He built this company from scratch, starting with a single ice cream cart 15 years ago. He named each shop by number, never after himself. That was the point. Customers didn't need to know who owned it. But lately, Trevor felt a gap had opened between him and what actually happened at ground level. So, he shaved the beard, dyed his hair darker, wore contacts instead of glasses, and threw on a branded polo with a fake name tag, Dave New Hire. He'd never met most of the current store-level employees. Store 3 was on its 3rd manager in 2 years. No one would recognize him. His cover story was simple. He was training for a possible full-time role, shadowing the team for 3 days. The district manager, a guy named Brian he trusted, was in on it. Brian had quietly looped in the head of scheduling to put Dave on the roster. No one else knew. When Trevor walked in, the bell above the door jingled, and the scent of waffle cones hit him like a warm memory. He quickly scanned the place. One person at the register, a teenage girl. One in the back scooping. A third wiping tables. "Hey, you the new guy?" A voice called from behind the counter. A tall man with a shaved head appeared from the back, wearing a headset and holding a clipboard. "I'm Mitch. I run this location." "You're Dave?" Trevor nodded. "Yeah. Just here to learn the ropes." "Cool," Mitch said flatly. "We're already short today, so don't expect a slow start." That explained the lean crew. But why were they short? Mitch gave him a quick tour, pointing things out with little enthusiasm. He didn't ask Trevor a single question. Just barked instructions. By noon, the place was packed. A school bus had dropped off a dozen middle schoolers. The girl behind the register, her name tag said Lena, was trying to keep up, but her hands were shaking slightly. Sweat clung to her forehead. "Hey, Mitch," she called. "Can I switch out soon?" "I haven't." "No." Mitch cut her off. "We're slammed." "Push through it." Trevor pretended to sweep near the counter, but watched Mitch closely. He didn't lift a finger to help. Just paced with his clipboard, answering the occasional phone call, or stepping outside for a smoke. By 2 o'clock, Trevor had seen enough to know something was off. Every worker looked drained. No one had left the floor for a break. He leaned over to the guy on toppings, his name was Carlos, and asked quietly, "Hey, do you guys get breaks at all?" Carlos looked over his shoulder, then shrugged. "Not really. Mitch says we can rest when it's dead. But it's never dead." That's when Trevor heard it. "Lena again. What do you mean she doesn't get a break?" "She's been on her feet for 6 hours." Trevor turned. Lena was talking to Mitch. Her voice was low but firm. "Bree's been here since open. She hasn't sat down once." "She's fine," Mitch said, not even looking at Bree, who was wiping down a table near the door, her shoulders slumped. "If she wants to work here, she needs to keep up." Trevor's chest tightened. Bree looked young, maybe 20, with delicate features and kind eyes that now looked hollow. She didn't say anything, just kept wiping. Trevor walked over and spoke quietly. "Hey, Bree, you okay?" She looked up, blinking fast. "Yeah, just tired. I've been here since 6. Have you had lunch?" She shook her head. "I asked earlier." Mitch said no. Trevor nodded slowly. Something burned in his gut. He turned to Mitch. "Hey, I can cover if someone needs a break." Mitch laughed. "You can't cover yet, newbie. You barely know where the cones are." Trevor held his gaze. "Still. She's been here 8 hours. Mitch's jaw tightened. "Look, we're short today. That's not my fault. I'm not sending anyone off the floor unless someone else shows up. Trevor didn't respond. He just watched. The rest of the crew kept their heads down. Later, in the cramped back room, Trevor sat on a milk crate, pretending to check inventory while listening to Mitch on the phone. I told her no. If she can't handle standing for a few hours, she's in the wrong job. Trevor kept his face still, but inside, something snapped. He stood and walked back out, just as Lena dropped a scoop on the floor and froze. Mitch rolled his eyes. Seriously? That's like the third time. I'm sorry, Lena said, her voice cracking. Sorry doesn't help us move this line. Trevor stepped forward. Hey, Mitch. You got a second? Mitch looked at him. What? Let's talk out back. Mitch followed, annoyed. If it's about the schedule, I don't make it. Take it up with Brian. Once the back door shut behind them, Trevor turned. I'm not Dave, he said softly.
I'm Trevor Sandlin.
I own this company. Mitch froze. I came here undercover to see how things really run, Trevor said. And what I've seen. I'm furious. Mitch's mouth opened, but nothing came out. You've been denying breaks, mocking employees, standing around while your team is drowning. You think that's leadership? I didn't know who you were, Mitch stammered. That's the point, Trevor said. You treat people like garbage when you think no one's watching. I've been short-staffed for weeks, Mitch said, defensive now. Brian knows. I've been doing double shifts just to keep this place open. Trevor paused. That part, at least, he hadn't seen firsthand. You working doubles?
Yes.
And covering call-outs, and dealing with supply issues. It's not like I'm sitting in the back watching movies. Trevor narrowed his eyes. Then why aren't you helping on the floor? No answer. You're not just tired, Mitch. You're burned out, and now you're burning everyone else down with you. Mitch looked away. I'm not making decisions right now, Trevor said. But I will be. And when I do, I'm not going to forget how Lena flinched when you raised your voice. Or how Bree didn't even ask for a break. She was too scared. Trevor stepped closer, voice low. You better hope something changes.
Fast.
Then he walked back inside, where Lena was wiping her eyes and Bree was still cleaning tables. And for the first time since he'd walked in, Trevor stopped pretending to sweep. He picked up a scoop and joined them behind the counter. Trevor didn't sleep much that night. He sat at the hotel desk with the overhead light humming softly, watching the day replay in fragments, the way Lena kept her eyes on the ground when Mitch spoke, the way Carlos subtly shifted his weight from foot to foot after standing too long, the empty expression on Bree's face as she cleaned tables without complaint. He took detailed notes. Actions. Timings. Body language. He wasn't interested in hearsay. He wanted patterns, not anecdotes. By the time the sun crept through the blinds, he had a list of concerns and a plan to get deeper into the store's daily rhythm without tipping his hand about the previous day's reveal. He arrived early, before the first shift began. The air still held a chill, and the parking lot was empty except for a delivery truck idling near the service entrance. Trevor knocked once, then pulled the door open. The prep area smelled like disinfectant and cream. Bree stood near the cooler, organizing inventory into labeled bins. Her hair was tied back, and she wore a light gray hoodie under her uniform. You're early, she said, glancing up. Figured I'd lend a hand before the rush. He stepped inside and washed up at the sink. She hesitated, then offered a small nod. We usually get the delivery stuff sorted before Mitch comes in. He doesn't like things being out when the store opens. Trevor helped her lift a crate of condensed milk onto the lower shelf. You always take on morning prep? Most days, she said. Mitch says I'm fast and don't ask questions. He studied her face. She didn't say it with pride. Just fact. You ever train anyone else to do it? No point. He says doubling up wastes payroll. Trevor opened a box of waffle cone mix and handed it over. You ever get a say in your schedule? Bree shook her head. Schedules go up Sunday night. We just show up for what we're given. The front door clicked open. Trevor checked the clock. Still 20 minutes before open. Carlos stepped in, rubbing his hands together.
Cold out there.
Hey, Bree. Dave. Trevor greeted him with a nod, watching as he clocked in and immediately began prepping the toppings bar. No small talk, no wasted motion. Just routine. As more staff trickled in, Trevor took mental notes. Everyone moved with practiced precision, barely speaking unless necessary. The energy wasn't panicked, it was subdued, like a group trying not to be noticed. By 10, the store was open, and the first customers filtered in. A mother with twin boys. A college student on her laptop. A delivery driver grabbing a milkshake to go. Mitch arrived at 10:15. He walked through the front like he owned the sidewalk, sunglasses on, coffee in hand, and didn't greet anyone. He did a slow circuit of the store, clipboard under one arm. Then he disappeared into the office. Trevor stepped behind the register. You want me to handle cash for a bit? He asked Carlos, who was currently juggling both register and toppings. Carlos hesitated, then stepped aside. You know how to do voids and size-ups? I'll figure it out. You stay on bar. As customers came through, Trevor handled orders, watching how the crew moved. Lena was back on register 1, but she barely looked up from the screen. Her tone was polite but automatic, her smile thin. When a new trainee named Maddie dropped a cup of sprinkles, she flinched slightly and bent quickly to clean it. Leave it, Trevor said gently. I'll grab the broom. I've got it, she replied quickly, not making eye contact. Mitch emerged from the office just before the noon wave. He pulled Lena aside near the sink, speaking quietly but firmly. Trevor couldn't hear the words, but he saw Lena's shoulders lift slightly, as if bracing. She returned to her station without a word. Trevor stepped beside her between customer orders. Everything good? She nodded too quickly. Fine. You sure? She hesitated, then glanced toward Mitch, who was walking the floor now. He says I talk too soft, she muttered. That I slow down the line. You think that's true? I've been working here for over a year. Never had a complaint until last month. She turned to the register again. It's whatever. That one word stuck. Whatever. Not anger. Not fear. Just resignation. It told him more than anything else had. Around 1, the pace slowed slightly. Mitch called Bree over to the back. She wiped her hands on a towel and followed him through the swinging door. Trevor waited a beat, then walked back to restock cups. The office door was cracked open. He paused just long enough to hear Mitch's voice. You need to speed up on cone assembly. That's where the bottleneck is. I'm trying, Bree said quietly. I just don't want to mess up sizes. Well, you're costing us seconds. Seconds add up. Trevor stepped away before they noticed him. He didn't want to rattle Bree by being caught listening in. By 3, the store was caught in a lull. A few customers lingered, but the staff finally slowed. Trevor offered to run a tray of used spoons and cups back to the dishwasher. In the back, he found Maddie hunched beside the sink, quietly washing. You doing okay? He asked. She jumped slightly.
Yeah, just trying to stay out of the way.
You're not in the way. You're part of the team. She nodded, but didn't speak. As he helped her rinse, he asked, You feel like you're learning much? People are nice, she said quickly.
Well,
most are. He waited. Mitch makes me nervous. He talks fast, and I mess up more when he's around. Trevor handed her a dry towel. That's not on you. She looked up. Feels like it is. He left the back room with a growing pit in his stomach. It wasn't just one issue. It was a culture, a silence, a pressure to perform perfectly and invisibly. At 4, Brian arrived. Officially, He was dropping off supply manifests, but Trevor had asked him to swing by discreetly to observe. They stepped out to the loading bay. "I need to know how long this has been going on," Trevor said. Brian folded his arms. "I had concerns a few months ago when turnover spiked. But I didn't have hard proof. You ever talk to the crew without Mitch around?" "I tried. But half of them barely speak above a whisper. I chalked it up to nerves." Trevor shook his head. "It's more than that. They're walking on eggshells." Brian looked toward the back door. "Want me to pull Mitch now?" "Not yet. If we yank him mid-shift, it'll throw the team into chaos. We wait until closing." "You sure?" "I want them to see that someone noticed. Not just swoop in and fix it from above. They need to understand they're not invisible." Brian nodded once. "I'll be nearby." The rest of the afternoon passed with quiet efficiency. The crew didn't slow, didn't complain. They kept pace, heads down, voices low. Mitch never raised his voice, but he didn't lift a finger to help either. He just hovered, commented, and vanished again. At closing, Trevor stayed behind to help clean while the others clocked out. Mitch stayed too, tapping out notes on his phone. When Lena walked past on her way out, Trevor called gently, "Hey." She turned. "You did good today." She gave a tired nod, then stepped into the night. Trevor turned to Mitch. "Got a minute?" Mitch looked up. "What's up?" Trevor walked him into the office and shut the door. "You're done here." Mitch blinked. "Excuse me?" "You're being reassigned. Effective immediately. You're not to return to this location." "You can't be serious. One off day, and you're pulling me?" Trevor didn't raise his voice. "I spent 2 full days watching you let your team drown. I saw your priorities. I saw your habits. I've kept this place running."
No.
"Your crew has. You've just been standing in their way." Mitch stood silent for a long moment. "So that's it. You'll get your final schedule from HR. After that, we'll talk options. But you're not leading anyone until you understand what leadership means." Trevor stepped out of the office and found Bree wiping down the last table. "Hey," he said softly. "Take tomorrow off. Full pay." She looked up, startled. "You've earned it."
She didn't speak.
Just nodded, once. Trevor stepped outside into the cool night air, the weight of the last 2 days settling into his chest. He wasn't finished. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was finally seeing his company again. Trevor returned to Store 3 the next morning just before opening, dressed plainly and without the name tag. He didn't bother slipping in unnoticed this time. The crew had seen enough of Dave to connect the dots. He wasn't there to pretend anymore. The mood inside was cautious, but not tense. Bree wasn't there, just as he'd asked. Carlos was already prepping toppings with quiet focus, and Maddie was organizing the back shelves. Lena arrived 5 minutes later, looking uncertain when she saw him near the counter. "Morning," Trevor said, nodding. She answered with a small wave. "Didn't think you'd be back. Still a few things I need to finish." She lingered near the register. "Is Mitch really gone?" "He won't be back here," Trevor said. "You all deserved better leadership than what you got." Lena didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. "Is someone new coming in today?" she asked. "Not yet. Brian's stepping in temporarily. After that, we'll talk about longer-term changes. Right now, I just want the store running without anyone grinding themselves into the floor." "That'll be a first," she muttered. Trevor didn't respond, but he noted the bitterness in her voice. The damage Mitch had done wasn't going to be fixed just by removing him. By mid-morning, Brian arrived carrying a clipboard and a bag of bagels. He set them down on the break room counter and greeted the crew without ceremony. "Everyone's still on schedule for today," he said. "But I've got a few adjustments coming next week. We're pulling in 2 floaters from Store 5 to help cover peak hours." Carlos looked up from the freezer. "Is that just for a day or 2? "Longer. Maybe 2 weeks. We're not patching this place with duct tape anymore. Trevor stayed on the floor, helping where needed but mostly watching. The difference was subtle, but real. Without Mitch hovering, the team moved more naturally. Instructions were shared instead of barked. Maddie asked 2 questions about prep timing and got clear answers from Carlos. No one rolled their eyes. Still, the fatigue was visible. No one moved slowly, but there was a kind of wear in their posture, a hesitancy in how they spoke to each other, like they were waiting for someone to snap again. After the lunch rush, Trevor pulled Lena aside near the back sink. "I wanted to ask about scheduling," he said. "You've been here a while. Do you think the current hours make sense?" She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "They're not consistent. One week I'm closing every night, the next I'm opening. It's hard to plan around. Did anyone ever ask what hours worked best for you?" She stared at him. "No one's ever asked that." Trevor nodded. "What would you prefer?" "Evenings. I take classes a few mornings a week, but I've had to skip a few when the schedule flips." "Understood. I'll make sure Brian gets that." She hesitated. "You're really changing things? I can't fix everything in a day."
But yes.
"We're not going back to how it was." Lena looked like she wanted to believe him, but wasn't sure she could yet. Later that afternoon, Trevor asked Maddie to join him in the office. She looked startled but followed him inside. "I wanted to check in," he said. "You've been here a few weeks now, right?" She nodded, standing awkwardly near the door. "What made you want to work here?" "I needed something part-time. I'm saving for school." "Been in food service before?" "Just a coffee shop during high school." "This is faster. You're picking things up quickly. But I noticed you hesitate when it gets busy." "I don't want to mess things up. Do you feel like you can ask for help when you need it?" She hesitated. "Now I do. Before. Not really." Trevor nodded. "We're going to pair you with one of the more experienced staff for the next week. Not just for training, but so you're not trying to figure it all out alone." "Okay." He handed her a small printout. "That's your revised schedule. Let me know if anything there doesn't work." She scanned it, then looked up. "Thanks." After she left, Brian stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. "I've been digging through the last 3 months of reports," he said. Mitch wasn't just tough on the crew. He was sloppy on inventory. Over-ordered mix, under-ordered disposables. "We ran out of napkins last week and he didn't log it." "Any customer complaints tied to that?"
2.
Both said staff apologized, said they were told nothing could be done. Trevor exhaled. "We'll need to retrain on basic accountability. If something runs out, the staff should know how to escalate it. I'll write up a revised protocol. Simple chain of response. No more just deal with it attitude." Trevor nodded. "Also, I want a suggestion box. Physical one. No names required. Make it clear we want feedback from the people actually doing the work." "You think they'll trust that?" "Maybe not today. But they will if we act on what they give us." Brian leaned against the filing cabinet. "You thinking of promoting from inside to replace Mitch?" "Possibly. But not right away. I want to see who steps up naturally. Who solves problems when no one's looking." Brian tapped the side of the cabinet once. "Fair enough." By early evening, foot traffic picked up again. Trevor moved back onto the floor, helping run sundaes and refilling cones without drawing attention. He wasn't there to be the boss today. He was there to show he hadn't disappeared. Carlos handed him a tray of cleaned utensils. "You sticking around all week?" he asked.
For now.
"You okay covering toppings through close?" "Yeah, I've done it before." "You ever train anyone else on the freezer rotation?" "Only Bree." "You think Maddie could learn it?" Carlos nodded slowly. "She just needs time. And someone patient." "You willing to be that?" "I can be." Trevor clapped him gently on the shoulder. "Good." After closing, the crew cleaned without prodding. Brian handled the final counts while Trevor wiped down the prep counters. Lena mopped the entryway without being asked. As the last of the customers left and the lights dimmed, Trevor stepped outside with Carlos, who had just finished dragging out the trash. "You ever think about managing?" Trevor asked. Carlos looked over, surprised. "Me? You've got the calm for it. People listen to you." "I've never managed anything. That never stopped anyone worth promoting." Carlos shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe. No pressure. Just think about it." Carlos nodded once, then turned to head back inside. Trevor stayed in the parking lot a moment longer, watching as the lights turned off one by one. The store wasn't fixed. Not yet. But the silence inside didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like space. Like the first breath after being underwater too long. And for the first time in days, he didn't feel like he had to be everywhere at once. He just had to be paying attention. The following week, Trevor returned to store 3 each morning, but this time without the disguise or pretense. He no longer needed to play the outsider. The team knew who he was, and more importantly, they'd stopped waiting for him to vanish again. Monday began with a short meeting before open. No clipboard. No formality. Just the staff gathered in a rough circle near the front window, the smell of fresh mix and sanitizer still settling into the air. Trevor stood with his hands in his jacket pockets, not towering over them, but level with them. "I'm not here to give a speech," he said, glancing around. "I'm here to talk about where we go from here." No one interrupted. "You already know Mitch won't be back. What matters now is making sure whatever comes next doesn't feel like a different version of the same thing." He looked toward Lena, then Carlos, then Maddie, who hovered near the far end. "Starting this week, Brian's implementing a new scheduling system. You'll get to input your availability every week. No more guessing what shifts you'll be handed." Carlos asked, "What if we still get stuck with something we can't do?" "Then you say so. And we adjust. If someone's consistently unavailable at the same time, we'll work around it. But it only works if people speak up." Lena crossed her arms lightly. "What if we get punished for saying no?" "You won't. Not anymore. If that ever happens again, you come straight to me." Trevor paused. "We're also adding a rotating floor lead position. Not a full manager. Just someone on shift who makes sure things stay organized. That person will be chosen weekly, and anyone can volunteer." Carlos leaned forward slightly. "Even newer folks?" "If they've got the right mindset, yes. It's not about seniority. It's about trust and clarity." Maddie looked down at her shoes, but Trevor noticed her listening more intently than she had the previous week. After the short meeting, the crew moved into their prep tasks. The flow was still careful, but it lacked the undercurrent of fear that had permeated every shift before. Brian worked quietly from the office, sorting the last of the inventory reports and building a list of potential hires to ease the staffing pressure. 2 part-time employees from Store 5 were due to arrive the next day. Later that afternoon, Trevor pulled a stool into the back hallway, flipping through a packet of employee files. He had asked HR to send him performance histories, not just to flag issues, but to find overlooked strengths. He marked Lena's file with a note: consistent attendance, no write-ups, 3 positive customer mentions in the past quarter. Lena passed by on her way back from the cooler and paused. "You digging through our records?" she asked, not accusing, just curious. "I'm trying to understand who's been carrying more than they should have had to." She leaned against the wall, arms loose at her sides. "You want to know something? Always. When Mitch first showed up, he said he was fixing the place. Said we were lazy and the store needed discipline. First couple weeks, he acted nice, bought us pizza once, asked about our classes. Then it flipped. He stopped smiling. Started keeping track of who took how long to fill a cone." Trevor closed the folder. "Did you ever tell anyone?" "I didn't think it would matter. People like him don't usually answer to people like me." He nodded. "You're right. And that's on me." She didn't say anything else. But she didn't walk away either. Trevor stood, pulled a small envelope from the inside of his coat, and handed it to her. "What's this?" "Back pay. For the breaks you didn't get." "It's not much, but it's a start." She opened it slowly, brows drawn. "You're doing this for everyone?" "Every staff member who worked under Mitch is getting the same. We're also adding a half-shift bonus for anyone who trains new hires." Her fingers tightened around the envelope. "That's new. That's the idea." The next day, the floaters arrived, Dion and Kelsey, both from Store 5. Brian introduced them without ceremony, and Trevor watched closely to see how the regular crew responded. Carlos showed Dion the freezer layout without being asked. Maddie offered to walk Kelsey through register functions. No one looked put out. That afternoon, Trevor approached Bree, who had returned from her paid day off. She was restocking syrup bottles near the back. "I didn't get to ask how was your day off." She shrugged. "Weird. I kept checking the clock like I was late for something." "You shouldn't feel guilty for resting." "I don't. Just not used to it." He waited, then asked, "You thinking about doing more here? Taking on anything new?" "Like what?" "Carlos mentioned you're the only one besides him who knows the full freezer rotation." "That right?" "Yeah. I trained myself when we kept running out of prepped product. Figured it was faster to learn than wait." Trevor looked at her. "Would you train others if we asked?" "I guess. If they listen." "I think they will." He handed her a clipboard with a simple checklist. "Build out a training flow. Doesn't need to be fancy. Just what works." She studied the page. "You sure? You've been doing the work. I'm just asking you to show it." Later that week, Brian posted a new shift board. It included a section labeled Floor Lead Rotation. The first name listed, Carlos. When he saw it, he didn't say anything aloud, but he tapped the corner of the page once before getting back to restocking lids. Trevor watched from across the room, then stepped outside. The air was crisp, and cars hummed by in the distance. He took out his phone and called HR. "I want a standing policy added to the employee handbook," he said. "Any manager caught denying legally required breaks will be removed immediately. No warnings. No exceptions." The voice on the other end hesitated. "We'll need to coordinate with legal." "Do that. And send me the draft before it goes live." After ending the call, Trevor sat on the bench outside the store, not to monitor, but to reflect. He didn't plan to stay embedded in Store 3 forever. He had 7 other locations that deserved the same attention. But he knew now that the problem hadn't been just one bad manager. It had been the silence that followed him. That silence had cracked. On Friday, the crew closed the store in 45 minutes, 15 faster than average. No one was rushing. They just moved better together now. On the way out, Maddie stopped him at the door. "Hey," she said. "I was thinking, if I'm going to learn freezer prep, should I shadow Bree next week?" Trevor smiled faintly. "That's up to Bree. But I think she'd say yes." Maddie nodded, then disappeared out the door. Brian joined him near the counter, flipping off the last row of lights. "They're still tired," he said. "They should be. But they're lighter." Trevor looked at the empty floor. "We don't need to fix everything overnight. We just need to never stop noticing again." Brian locked the door behind them. Outside, the streetlights blinked on, and for the first time in months, Store 3 didn't feel like a place people endured. It felt like a place they could grow. Trevor walked to his car without looking back. He didn't need to. The people inside finally had room to stand up straight.